St-Moritz in Switzerland, the venue for the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh, Skeleton and Parasport World Championships for 2023. And on this most historic and beautiful of tracks, a historic event. For the first time ever, parasport athletes were competing in the World Championships at the same time and on the same venue as all their other counterparts in the sport. And they were first up in the second weekend. After a tight first day of racing, the battle for the medals was up for grabs. Latvia's Arturs Klots, a former two-time world champion, had been in sixth position overnight, disappointed with his first two runs, but he tidied things up in the third heat and going into the fourth was looking to move up the order. With near half a dozen race weekends in St-Moritz in his career that started back in 2011, he had plenty of experience to draw on. He was the 2017 world champion here and 2018 world champion in Lillehammer in Norway. A great final run put him comfortably into the lead, but most of his top rivals were yet to come. Among them, the USA's Will Castillo. He'd been in the bronze medal position overnight at the head of a tightly fought pack squabbling for the medals, but had slipped down with a disappointing third heat. The former US Army veteran, a Purple Heart medal winner, has been in great form, but like almost everybody else was brand new to the sleds. These new Bavarian-built monos had only been introduced the previous weekend in Innsbruck, and so everybody was getting to grips with them on the tricky St-Moritz track. And again, in the final heat, Castillo could not find the pace to hang on in front of Klotz, who remained in the leader's box. The most decorated of all parasliders, Canada's Lonnie Bissonnette. His first ever race weekend in these sleds, as he was not in Innsbruck the previous event. So learning the track and a brand new sled. But the veteran Canadian base jumper and wheelchair base jumper has plenty of knowledge to build on. Fifth place after 3 runs, he was looking to hang on to that position and possibly move up the order. And as his knowledge of the sleds deepened, so his lines tidied. Best speed of all at the bottom. He wouldn't overhaul Arturs Klotz in the leader's box, but he would be second at the line. Was it enough for a medal? Only the final sleds would dictate it. Second place overnight was Hermann Allmaier of Austria. Never a World Championship medalist, he'd been third fastest in the first heat and fastest of all in the second to close down the overnight leader. And then in the third heat, Hermann took a 100th of a second advantage. Into the fourth run, it was all down to a one-heat race between Allmaier and Chris Stewart of Switzerland. Were there too many mistakes in the Austrian's run? Well, he had enough to narrowly take the lead over Arturs Klotz, so he was guaranteed at least a silver medal. But was it enough for gold? Among the front runners, the last to go was Chris Stewart, the hometown hero. A relative newcomer to the sport, he only started in 2015 just for fun and became hooked. He lives nearby in St-Moritz, and so this is very much home territory for him. The overnight leader was pretty relaxed about a 2-heat race, maybe a little less so about a single heat race, trying to come from behind, good speed at the bottom, but not enough. He would be in third place at the line. Hermann Allmaier confirmed as the new world champion, Arturs Klotz taking another silver medal, and Chris Stewart his first World Championship medal, a bronze, ahead of Lonnie Bissonnette, Will Castillo and Corey Mapp. The new Para-World Champion, Austria's Hermann Allmaier. The women's bobsleigh competition started on Friday afternoon, the deciding runs on Saturday morning, very different conditions for all of the athletes. The St-Moritz natural track is hand-built every season and always has a little variation or two. This year's is perhaps the toughest in 2 decades. Lauren Alter had crashed in training, survived day 1, But again, on day 2 of the competition, was caught out at Horseshoe, and a kilometre later, the sled came to a halt. She and brakewoman Nyla Skirter were okay, but badly shaken up and out of the competition. In the top group of sleds, France's Margot Bock and Carla Seneschal. 2 years earlier, in the last World Championships in Altenburg, they had finished in 15th place. Here, holding off the young junior world champion Germany's Maureen Zimmer, the French duo had not only improved their starts but dramatically increased their standing as well. A top 5 finish guaranteed, and that would satisfy the French government funding for another season. A great result from the French duo and their shocked coach Bruno Mijon. 4th place after 3 of the 4 heats, Switzerland's Melanie Hassler and Nadia Pasternak. Again, a 10-place improvement on their World Championship debut outing in Altenburg in 2021. Despite being at home in Switzerland, they have had precious few runs down the track in the warm weather this winter, and that gave them a little advantage over their rivals. Nevertheless, great runs from Melanie and big pushes with her brakewoman Nadia held them in the top half dozen all the way through. A great reward in their second World Championships outing. Fourth position overnight had been Kaylee Humphries and Keisha Love of the USA. They moved up to 3rd with Lauren Alter's crash in the 3rd heat, and Kaylee Humphries, a 2-time women's bobsleigh Olympic champion and 4-time world champion, is always a threat. Day 2 here in St-Moritz, and she was laying down another smoker. Guaranteed at least a bronze medal. She took her 2nd of 4 World Championships here in 2013. Could she make it a 5th? She certainly did enough to pile the pressure on the remaining 2 drivers. With the US guaranteed at least 1 medal, would the 2 German drivers who were at the top of the pile crack? Lisa Buchwitz had led overnight by 0.05 of a second, came into the final heat 0.06 back. She had an early advantage over Kaylee Humphries, and good speed in the forest would keep that alive. It wasn't error-free, but it was good enough to guarantee herself at least a silver medal. And it would pile the pressure on Kim Kilicki, her teammate, who was waiting at the start. Lisa guaranteed herself her first ever World Championship medal in her first full season as a driver. Kim Kilicki and Leonie Fiebig were the last sled on ice with a slender advantage after 3 heats. Kilicki, the silver medalist in Altenburg 2020 and 2021, had a shot at the gold. It would be her or Buchwitz to become a first-time world champion for Germany. The gap grew, it shrank. It grew again. It was never into double digits. It was going to be unbelievably close. Kilicki had just enough in the final corners, and across the line, she was the new world champion by 0.05 of a second over 4 runs of this 1,850-metre track. An unbelievably tiny margin. Gold for Kim Kilicki and Leonie Fiebig ahead of Lisa Buchwitz, Kira Lipperheider and Kaylee Humphries and Keisha Love. The champagne and the tears flowed for the new world champions. The final event, perhaps the biggest of all, the Königsklasse, the blue ribboned, the 4-man bobsleigh. As ever, plenty of candidates in the battle for the medals. Switzerland's Mikkel Vogt, already a bronze medalist in the 2-man a week earlier, looking to try and improve on his top 6 position after the first 3 heats. He'd had the 4th fastest run in the first heat, but a disappointing second run on day 1 dropped him back down the order, and he was fighting his way back. Taps down the bottom of the track didn't rob him of enough speed to slow him down, and he came into the leader's box with 5 sleds remaining. A big personal best result for Mickey Vogt, and he was still the leader as we got to the top 4. Newly crowned 2-man world champion Johannes Lochner. With his crew, they'd had top 3 starts, but a flaky first day saw him 3rd and 5th fastest, and then he skidded more time away with a 7th fastest 3rd run. It was time to steady the ship, and he did. The gap over Mickey Vogt holding steady midway down the run. Closing in on the finish line, he had enough speed in hand to guarantee himself a top 4 position and maybe a shot at a medal. But somebody else would have to give it away. The top 3, and an unusual man in the frame for the medals, Emil Tsipoulis of Latvia. The 27-year-old in his first full season of World Cup sliding, his first World Championships on the 4-man sled, and he had been exemplary. The veteran starting crew behind him providing him with great acceleration. He had never been slower than 5th fastest and was fastest of all in the 3rd of the 4 heats, putting himself right in the frame. Long skid at the fastest part of the track at over 85 miles an hour, took a little bit of speed away, but at the line they knew they were in the medals, much to the delight of their veteran coach Sandis Prousis. An unbelievably calm performance from Emil Tsipoulis, and that might pile the pressure on the remaining 2 sleds. Brad Hall of Great Britain has had 3 gold medals this season in the 4-man World Cup racing and 2 silvers out of 6 starts. 100th behind Francesco Friedrich in the first heat. Friedrich opened the gap to 2/10 overnight. Brad brought it down to just 800s into the final run. But skids at the top of the track, taps on the firm ice walls, all bringing speed out of the sled. He did not have the smooth run that he'd had first and 3rd time down the St-Moritz track. Nevertheless, it was good enough to take the lead with 1 to go, and a first 4-man World Championship medal for Great Britain since 1939. Jubilation from the Latvians. It was a dead heat. Would we have a 3-way tie for gold? Francesco Friedrich only had 800s over Brad Hall of Great Britain after 3 runs, but his boys ripped off an astonishing new start record at the beginning, and Friedrich steadied the ship. His 2nd heat and his 4th heat were both top draw, and in the final run he absolutely raced away from the opposition. The greatest bobsledder in history, breaking the track record with the very final run yet again to take his 5th consecutive World Championship gold by nearly 0.7 of a second. 2-man might have eluded him, but 4-man gold went to Francesco Friedrich from joint silver medalists Brad Hall and Emil Tsipoulis. A fantastic fortnight of racing on the oldest, most historic and the only natural track on the planet, St-Moritz in Switzerland. The World Championships are done, but there are still 2 more World Cup weekends to decide the destiny of the Crystal Globes.